Maybe she can't have kids. That's why she's always so quiet, Marissa said, laughing loudly as everyone at the family barbecue turned to look at me. My heart froze. The air felt heavy, and my smile disappeared. I waited for anyone, to say something, but all I heard was the sound of my husband, Evan, clearing his throat and looking away. He didn't defend me. No one did. Hey everyone. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and say hello in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Now, let's get into the story. I'm Lydia, and that moment still burns in my memory. When I married Evan, I thought I was becoming part of a warm, kind family. I imagined holidays filled with laughter, long dinners, and people who cared for each other. But I was wrong. From the first day I met Marissa, Evan's older sister, I could feel she didn't like me. Her smile never reached her eyes. She'd make small comments like, "Oh, that's what you're wearing," or, "You're not really the cooking type, are you?" At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself she was just teasing or trying to get to know me. But it didn't stop. Every family gathering became a test of patience. If I stayed quiet, she said I was cold. If I spoke too much, she rolled her eyes. Nothing I did was ever right for her. Evan would always tell me, "That's just how Marissa is. Don't take it personally." But it was personal. The things she said cut deep. I wanted to tell her how much her words hurt me, but I didn't want to cause problems between Evan and his family. So I stayed silent. Then came that barbecue. Everyone was outside, Evan's parents, his cousins, even some neighbors. I had just finished serving drinks when Marissa made that cruel joke about me not being able to have kids. The laughter stopped, and all eyes were on me. My face burned with embarrassment. I wanted to disappear. I could feel tears pressing at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I took a deep breath, forced a small smile, and walked away. Inside the kitchen, I stood alone, staring at the sink, feeling the weight of her words sink in. I had tried so hard to be accepted, to be loved by this family. But in that moment, I realized something. No matter what I did, Marissa would always find a way to tear me down. That night, when everyone left, Evan acted like nothing had happened. I went to bed quietly, staring at the ceiling, wondering how love could feel so lonely. I didn't know it then, but that moment would be the start of a change in me, a quiet promise that I wouldn't let her destroy me again. Marissa never liked me, not even from the start. She'd always find something mean to say, about my clothes, my hair, or the way I spoke. She called me too quiet, too boring, and once even told Evan that I didn't fit in with their kind of people. I tried to laugh it off, hoping things would get better after our marriage. But instead, they got worse. When Evan and I began struggling to have a baby, Marissa found a new way to hurt me. She made jokes that felt like knives. At every family dinner, she'd smirk and say things like, "Some women just aren't meant to be mothers," or, "Maybe Lydia should focus on cooking instead of trying for a baby." Everyone would go quiet for a second, then quickly change the subject, pretending they hadn't heard. I would glance at Evan, hoping he'd say something, anything, to stop her. But he never did. He'd just sigh or look down at his plate, avoiding my eyes. Later, when I confronted him, he'd say, "She's just teasing, Lydia. Don't take it so seriously." But it wasn't teasing. It was cruelty. It was humiliation dressed as a joke. His parents weren't any better. Whenever Marissa went too far, they'd smile awkwardly and say, "Oh, that's just how she is. Don't mind her." But how could I not? It was my heart she was stepping on every single time. The worst part wasn't even Marissa's words. It was Evan's silence. The man who promised to protect me, to stand by me, wouldn't even defend me in front of his own sister. That silence hurt more than all her insults combined. I started avoiding family gatherings altogether. I'd make excuses, say I wasn't feeling well, or that I had work to finish. It was easier than sitting at a table where I was everyone's favorite target. But no matter how much I avoided them, her voice still echoed in my head. At night, I'd lie awake next to Evan, staring at the ceiling while he slept. Tears would slip quietly down my face. I kept wondering if maybe I really was the problem, if I wasn't good enough, if I didn't deserve to be a mother or a wife who was loved and defended. But deep inside, another feeling began to grow. It wasn't sadness anymore, it was something sharper. I didn't know it yet, but that pain was slowly turning into strength. One day, I promised myself Marissa would understand how her words felt. She would learn that silence doesn't mean weakness, and that some lessons come back harder than the pain that caused them. Evan's birthday was supposed to be a happy day. I spent hours planning everything, his favorite cake, his favorite food, the perfect decorations. I wanted to make it special for him and maybe, just maybe, show his family that I truly belonged. For most of the evening, things went smoothly. Everyone laughed, the music played, and for a short while, I forgot all the pain Marissa had caused me. But then came her moment. She stood up with a glass of wine in her hand, smiling sweetly at me before turning to the crowd. "I just want to make a toast," she said. "To Lydia. You know what I admire most about her? Her patience. Not every woman could watch other people have babies for so long." Her voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. The room went quiet for half a second. Then laughter followed. Some laughed nervously, others just stared at me. My smile faded. I felt my chest tighten as the words sank in. I could feel all eyes on me, and I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. My hands shook, and my face burned with shame. Evan didn't say a word. He just looked at his drink, pretending not to notice. I stood there for a few seconds, frozen, forcing myself to stay calm. I quietly excused myself and went to the kitchen. My eyes filled with tears the moment I was alone. I didn't know which hurt more, Marissa's cruelty or Evan's silence. When the guests finally left, the house was quiet again. I sat on the edge of the bed, waiting for Evan to say something. He walked in, loosening his tie, and acted like nothing had happened. That made me angry. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked softly, trying to hold back my tears. "She humiliated me, Evan. In front of everyone." He sighed. "Lydia, she didn't mean it that way. You're just being too sensitive. It was a joke. A joke." That word broke something in me. For years, I had told myself to stay calm, to be understanding, to forgive her because family matters. But in that moment, I realized no one was going to protect me. Not even the man I married. I looked at Evan, really looked at him, and saw the truth. He wasn't going to change. He would always choose peace over defending me. He would always let his sister insult me as long as it kept his family happy. That night, I lay in bed beside him, staring at the ceiling while he slept peacefully. Inside me, something hardened. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg for kindness or wait for someone to stand up for me. From that moment on, I made a silent promise. I would protect myself, no matter what it took. After that night, I stopped crying. Something in me changed. I stopped trying to make anyone understand my pain. Instead, I started focusing on myself. If no one would protect me, I would build a life so strong that no one could ever break me again. I threw myself into work. I was already a nurse practitioner, but I wanted to do more. I began working extra shifts, sometimes late into the night. I took advanced courses, earned new certifications, and volunteered at community clinics. It wasn't easy. I barely slept, and there were days I came home too tired to even eat. But every hour I worked was another brick in the wall I was building around my heart. I was done being weak. Evan barely noticed the change. He was busy with his own world, and I didn't bother explaining mine anymore. We lived under the same roof, but it felt like two strangers sharing a house. I found peace in my job instead. Helping patients reminded me that kindness still existed, even if I didn't receive it from my own family. While I was quietly rebuilding my life, Marissa's perfect world started falling apart. Her husband, Troy, lost his job after his company shut down. They had a big house, fancy cars, and a lifestyle that depended on appearances. Suddenly, the money started running out. The same woman who used to mock me for being plain was now struggling to pay her bills. But even then, Marissa never changed. She still acted proud and superior. At family gatherings, she'd wear expensive clothes she couldn't afford and talk about trips she hadn't taken. I could see the cracks beneath her smile. The woman who once laughed at my pain was now hiding her own. Then, one afternoon, she showed up at my clinic. I was finishing my shift when the receptionist said, "There's someone here to see you." When I walked out, there she was, Marissa. Her eyes were red, and she looked tired, nothing like the confident woman I used to know. "Lydia," she said softly, I need your help." She explained that she had some medical issues and couldn't afford the treatment because their insurance had lapsed after Troy lost his job. For a moment, I just stood there, listening quietly. I didn't interrupt, didn't rush to comfort her. I let her talk. Inside, I felt something shift. Not anger, not revenge, just a strange calm. Life had brought her to me, just as she once brought pain to me. The same woman who once called me Barren was now asking for help. I didn't gloat or smile. I simply nodded and said, "I understand." As she left, I looked at her walking away, and deep inside I knew the universe had just handed me my moment. Not to hurt her, but to show her who I had become. When Marissa came back to see me, she looked different, quiet, uneasy, and nothing like the proud woman who once made me feel small. She waited at the door of my office, clutching her purse tightly, her eyes filled with worry. I could tell it had taken her a lot of courage to come here. "Lydia," she said softly, her voice trembling, "I really need your help. The hospital told me I can't start my treatment without a referral letter, and you're the only one in town who can sign it." For a second, I just sat there looking at her. I remembered all the nights I cried because of her words, all the moments she made me feel worthless. The woman standing in front of me now was desperate, and for the first time, she wasn't laughing. She wasn't pretending to be better than me. I took a deep breath and kept my voice calm. "I'm sorry, Marissa," I said gently, "but I can't sign for family members or anyone I know personally. It's against policy." Her eyes widened. "Please, Lydia. You don't understand. I've already tried everything. I need this letter to start my treatment. You're the only one who can do it." Her words reminded me of all the times I needed help, and she turned her back on me. I had begged for kindness once too, and she laughed at me. But this moment wasn't about revenge or payback. It was about balance. It was about her finally understanding what her cruelty felt like. "I understand," I said softly, "but I can't risk my job. I'm truly sorry." She stood there for a long time, her face pale, her eyes filling with tears. "I didn't mean the things I said before," she whispered. I don't know. I was wrong." Her apology hung in the air, but I didn't say anything. I just nodded, my expression calm, steady. Inside, I felt no joy, no pride, just peace. The same silence that once felt heavy now felt powerful. She left my office quietly, shoulders lowered, no trace of the arrogance she once carried. I watched her walk away, and I realized that sometimes life teaches lessons better than words ever could. It wasn't about being cruel or getting even. It was about finally standing tall after years of being made to bow. I didn't have to raise my voice or remind her of what she'd done. My calm refusal said everything. When the door closed behind her, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. For the first time in years, I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel broken. I had faced the same person who once destroyed my confidence. And this time, I didn't crumble. I had my dignity, and that was worth more than revenge. When I found out I was pregnant, I couldn't believe it. After so many years of waiting, of crying quietly at night, it finally happened. Without any treatments, without any hospital visits. Just naturally. I sat on the bathroom floor, holding the test in my shaking hands, laughing and crying at the same time. For the first time in years, I felt light. I felt complete. Evan was overjoyed when I told him. He lifted me off the floor and spun me around like he used to when we were first married. He couldn't stop smiling, and for a few days, everything felt right again. The house felt warm. The silence that used to hurt now felt peaceful. But Marissa couldn't hide her jealousy for long. She came over with gifts, smiling too wide, her words too sweet. "Oh, Lydia, I'm so happy for you," she said, but her eyes told a different story. I saw the tightness in her jaw, the quick glances she gave my belly. She'd always been the one everyone envied, and now that had changed. At first, I tried to believe she meant well. But small comments began slipping out. Once she said, "I hope you'll have the energy to keep up. Pregnancy isn't easy when you're older, you know." Another time, she laughed and said, "After waiting this long, I bet you'll be too careful to even let the baby cry." Each time, I stayed calm. I smiled and said nothing. I didn't need to fight anymore. I had already won in my own quiet way. Then came the family dinner. The whole table was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and light conversation. I was glowing, even though I didn't say much. Everyone kept congratulating us, but Marissa couldn't stand the attention shifting away from her. She raised her glass and said, "I hope you can handle motherhood after waiting this long." The room went silent. My heart pounded, but I didn't flinch. I looked straight at her and smiled. "Don't worry, Marissa," I said softly. "I've been patient all my life. I can handle anything." Everyone laughed awkwardly, trying to change the subject, but Marissa's face turned pale. She couldn't hide how uncomfortable she was. For the first time, she realized that I wasn't the weak one anymore. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt my baby move for the first time. A tiny flutter, a quiet promise. It was as if the universe was whispering that my time had come. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need anyone's approval. I had peace, love, and a future growing inside me. And that was more powerful than anything Marissa could ever take from me. Not long after my pregnancy, everything began to fall apart for Marissa. Her perfect life, the one she had always bragged about, started to crumble. Her husband, Troy, finally had enough of her sharp tongue and constant gossip. One day, he simply packed his bags and left. People whispered that he couldn't stand the way she talked down to everyone, even him. Soon after, Marissa lost her job. Her reputation in the community had already been damaged by her pride and bad attitude. No one wanted to work with someone who thought she was better than everyone else. Her friends, the ones who used to laugh at her jokes about me, slowly disappeared too. They stopped answering her calls and stopped inviting her anywhere. When she couldn't keep up with her bills, she lost her house. The same house she once showed off during every family gathering, boasting about how not everyone can live like this. I heard she moved back in with her parents, the very people she used to mock for being too simple. Life has a way of teaching lessons in silence. Evan's family felt sorry for her. They said things like, "Poor Marissa, she's had such bad luck." But I didn't see it as bad luck. I saw it as truth catching up with her. Still, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. Hatred would only tie me to the past I had worked so hard to escape. So I did what I could, but from a distance. Through a local charity, I sent clothes, groceries, and a few baby supplies. I never wrote my name. I didn't want her to know it came from me. It wasn't about showing off kindness. It was about peace. I wanted to help without being part of her life again. Sometimes I'd see her at the market. She looked thinner, quieter, no makeup, no expensive bag hanging from her arm. She would lower her eyes when she saw me. I never gloated. I only nodded politely and walked past her. That was my victory, walking away without bitterness. Evan once asked me, "Do you ever feel sorry for her?" I thought for a moment and said, "No, not really. Everyone gets what they give. I just wish she learns from it." Revenge had never been about hurting her. It wasn't about watching her fail. It was about me rising without anger. I had built a calm, happy life. I had a loving husband, a healthy baby, and peace inside my heart. And when I saw Marissa standing alone at the bus stop one rainy evening, clutching her umbrella with trembling hands, I realized karma had already done what I never could. She had lost everything that made her proud, while I had gained everything that truly mattered. It had been several months since I last saw Marissa. Life had been peaceful for me, busy, but full of love and small joys. One sunny afternoon, I stopped by the grocery store to pick up a few things for dinner. I wasn't expecting anything unusual, but as I turned down one of the aisles, I saw a familiar figure standing by the canned goods. It took me a moment to recognize her. It was Marissa. She looked nothing like the proud, confident woman I once knew. Her hair was dull and tied up carelessly, her clothes looked worn, and her eyes were tired. She had lost so much weight that I almost didn't recognize her at first. For a moment, I just stood there, unsure what to do. I could have walked away, but something inside me made me stay. When she noticed me, her face changed completely. She froze, and for a few seconds, she didn't say a word. Then, with a trembling voice, she whispered, "Lydia, I'm so sorry. For everything I said. For the way I treated you." Her words caught me off guard. I could see real pain in her eyes, pain that went deeper than embarrassment. I looked at her and said softly, "Marissa, I forgive you. What you said hurt deeply, but words can heal if we stop using them as weapons." Her lips trembled, and then tears started rolling down her cheeks. Right there in the middle of the grocery store, she began to cry. People around us turned to look, but I didn't care. I gently touched her arm and said, "It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is that you learn from them." Marissa wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I was so cruel," she said quietly. "I thought I was better than you. But now I see how wrong I was. You were always kind, and I just kept tearing you down." I could feel her regret. And for the first time, I didn't see her as the woman who mocked me. I saw her as someone broken by her own choices. She had finally realized that the world she built on pride and jealousy had crumbled because of her own actions. "I'm not perfect either," I told her gently. "But I learned that kindness is not weakness. It's strength. It's what keeps us standing when others fall." She nodded slowly, her eyes full of shame, but also relief. It was as if a heavy burden had lifted off her shoulders. "Thank you, Lydia," she whispered. "You didn't have to forgive me." I smiled softly. Sometimes forgiveness isn't for the other person. It's for our own peace. We stood there for a few seconds, and then she turned to leave, still wiping her tears. I watched her walk away, and for the first time, I felt truly free. Forgiveness had closed the final chapter of my pain. I walked out of that store not as a victim of Marissa's cruelty, but as a woman who had found strength, peace, and healing in her own heart. When my baby girl, Amelia, came into the world, I felt a happiness I had never known before. She was tiny, soft, and perfect in every way. I held her close and whispered to her about all the love and care she would have in her life. In that moment, nothing else mattered. No past pain, no arguments, no hurt words. All that mattered was her and the new life we were starting together. A few days after she was born, I found a small note waiting for me. It was from Marissa. I wasn't sure why she had sent it. We hadn't been close for a long time, and our relationship had its rough moments. But in her handwriting, the note simply said, "You'll be a wonderful mother. Thank you for showing me what grace looks like." The words were short, but they carried weight. I read them several times, trying to understand why she had sent such a note. I realized that life has a strange way of teaching lessons. Sometimes people who hurt us or misunderstand us may still recognize the good we do. Sometimes the world does not reward anger or revenge, but quiet strength and kindness. Reading Marissa's note, I felt a sense of calm that I hadn't felt in a long time. I didn't feel the need to reply or explain myself. The note itself was enough to remind me that holding on to bitterness only makes life heavier. Watching Amelia grow over those first few days, I understood more clearly what I wanted from life. I wanted peace. I wanted to be a mother who led with love, patience, and understanding. I wanted to show my daughter how to face challenges with dignity, how to forgive without forgetting, and how to carry herself with confidence even when others doubt her. That small note from Marissa reminded me that our actions, more than our words, speak the loudest. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting or accusations. There didn't need to be. Sometimes the strongest way to teach a lesson is to live well. I focused on my daughter, on building a home filled with warmth and laughter. I surrounded myself with people who supported me, who encouraged me to grow, and who reminded me of the good in the world. Life became quieter, but it also became richer. I understood that revenge is not always about proving someone wrong or making them feel the same pain they caused. True strength comes from carrying on, creating happiness, and letting go of the things that no longer serve you. Marissa's note was a small acknowledgement, but it meant something bigger. It showed me that even those who have seen our struggles can recognize our growth and our dignity. As Amelia slept in my arms, I promised myself that I would keep this lesson close. I would choose peace over anger, love over resentment, and life over bitterness. The best way to show strength is not through conflict, but through the way we live each day, the way we nurture those we love, and the calm confidence we carry within ourselves. In that quiet moment, I knew that I had learned one of life's simplest and most important truths. Living well is the greatest victory we can ever achieve. Years passed, and my daughter grew into a lively little girl. Watching her run, laugh, and explore the world made me think about how much words can affect people. Words can hurt deeply, leaving marks that take time to heal. But they can also encourage, comfort, and inspire. I realized that every word we speak matters, whether we intend it to or not. Life had taught me that silence can be strong. Sometimes, saying nothing in the face of cruelty or mockery is the best response. It protects your peace and stops anger from growing. But silence alone is not always enough. There are times when you must speak up for yourself. Standing firm, expressing your truth, and showing confidence in who you are is even stronger than staying quiet. True strength is knowing when to act and when to let things pass. Watching my daughter play reminded me of all the lessons I had learned. I wanted her to grow knowing that life will have challenges, and some people will try to bring her down. But those moments should never define her. How she responds, how she treats others, and how she carries herself are what truly matter. Cruel words lose their power when we refuse to let them control our feelings or actions. I thought about people who had once tried to hurt me with their words. I felt no bitterness toward them anymore. I understood that their actions reflected their own struggles, not my worth. Holding on to anger only makes life heavier, but choosing peace, forgiveness, and self-respect makes it lighter. Living with grace and dignity became my quiet way of winning. It was a victory not shouted from the rooftops but felt deeply inside, where it mattered most. At that moment, I smiled to myself. I realized life is not about proving people wrong. It is about building a life full of love, joy, and inner strength. Sometimes those who mocked us may see our happiness and feel envy, but that is their burden, not ours. What matters is how we allow experiences to shape us, not how they break us. Difficult moments, cruel words, and past hurts can refine us, making us stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. I whispered to my daughter as she laughed and ran toward me. Always remember, you are stronger than anyone's words. Let your life speak louder than their cruelty. And in that moment, I knew I had truly learned one of life's most important lessons. Kindness, patience, and resilience are far more powerful than anger, revenge, or bitterness. Watching her grow, I understood that living well is the best way to show strength. It is not about shouting or making others feel guilty. It is about creating a life full of love and joy, protecting your peace, and using every challenge to become better. And as always, I reminded myself quietly, thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. You never know whose strength you might awaken today.